Hi, happy hump day from Franklin Park Zoo in Dorchester. My name is Brittany, and behind me I have Alexander Camelton, and behind him is Zowie, our two Bactrian camels. We're here today to celebrate Zowie's birthday. She turned 6 years old yesterday. So to celebrate, I have a special treat for them. These are some brown paper bags filled with their grain for the day. So we have wild herbivore pellets and beet pulp. I also threw on some alfalfa and some carrots. These are special treats that they are allowed to have. The bags we're reusing. We use pine shavings in a lot of our barns to help clean up after the animals. And then when we're done, the bags make really great enrichment. The camels will eat all of this, bag included. They have really great digestive systems. They're really good at eating things that other animals can't, like dry and salty plants. So they will hopefully love this. They're surprisingly heavy. Hopefully I can get it over the fence. Okay guys, you're very close to the fence. Watch out. There we go. I made one for each of them, but they get along very well, and they often like to eat from the same bowl. So paper bags are fun to give to the animals because they have to think a little bit to get at their foods. So they have to figure out how to get the bag open. In the wild, they would be foraging, so they would be spending much of their day searching for food. At the zoo, we just give it to them. So presenting it in this way gives them an opportunity to do that searching behavior that they would in the wild. And that's what enrichment is supposed to do. It's meant to encourage species-specific behaviors, encourage them to do things that they would in the wild.
Our first question, how much do they weigh?
That's a great question. So as of their last weigh-in, they both weighed about 1,800 pounds. That's a little bit big for a female. For Xander, I think he's still got some growing to do. As I mentioned, Zowie is 6 years old. She is fully grown, fully mature. Xander is 5 years old. Males mature somewhere between the ages of 3 and 8. So he might still have a little bit to go before he reaches his full size. The males will change their weight throughout the year, based on their behavior. When they reach maturity during breeding season, the males go into rut. And one of the things that happens is they lose their appetite. And so they stop eating for much of the winter. So as Xander gets older, he may go through these periods of dramatic weight loss. But then in the summer, when rut is over, he'll gain all of it back. The females are a little bit more stable.
We also got a question about how tall they can get.
How tall they are. On average, they're about 7 feet tall. Xander is quite tall. It's difficult to measure. He gets a little bit nervous when I take out the measuring tape, but we think he's at least 8 feet tall at the humps.
And because they're so big, how much do they have to eat every day?
So they get, every day, Xander gets 26 cups of wild herbivore grain, and Zowie gets 19 cups, and then they each get 3 cups of beet pulp. And on top of that, they're allowed to eat as much Timothy hay as they want. Right now they're going through about 6 flakes of Timothy hay, so about half of a 35-pound bale every day.
And we already saw them being a little goofy, but do they have any kind of quirks or personality traits that distinguish them?
They do. So I'm very lucky that I get to train them, and their behavior during training is very different. Xander loves to train. He gets very excited when he sees me coming with my training tools, with the target pole and my whistle and the treats. If he doesn't get to train first, he throws a little temper tantrum, and then he'll start bucking and kicking. And then sometimes even after he's had his turn, he'll throw another temper tantrum when I go to work with Zowie. Zowie is a little bit more aloof. I have to work harder to get her attention. So it's, in some ways, it's more rewarding for me because I really have to work for it. They also have different behaviors that they each like to do, and their bravery, I guess you could say, is a little bit different. Xander's much more curious, so when they get a new item for enrichment, like the very first time that I ever gave them a cardboard box, Xander was the first one to approach the box. But he also, when he gets spooked, reacts much stronger than Zowie does. Again, he's much more likely to start bucking or kicking. So they're kind of funny in that respect too. So.
Yeah, another question. How many kinds of camel are there?
So there are 3 species of camel. There's the dromedary camel. They have 1 hump. And then there's the domesticated Bactrian camel, which is what Zowie and Xander are. They have 2 humps. And there's the wild Bactrian camel. They're a little bit smaller than Xander and Zowie here. They can tolerate a lot more salt in their diet. So there's a few differences. And there's very few of them left in the wild. They are critically endangered. The way that you can remember the different kinds is if you take a capital letter B and turn it on its side, it has 2 humps, just like Bactrian camels. And if you take a capital letter D and turn it on its side, it has 1 hump, just like a dromedary camel.
Awesome. So have you worked with the camels for a long time?
I have. Let's see. I worked with my first ever camel, or met my first ever Bactrian camel, 10 years ago when I was an intern here at the zoo. And then I became the camel trainer about 6 years ago, if I remember correctly. And I've been working with them ever since. I've been working with Xander and Zowie ever since they arrived here at the zoo. Zowie came when she was 1 year old, and Xander came here when he was 2.
So where would you find camels out in nature?
Out in the wild, you would find Bactrian camels in Asia. They're native to the steppes of Mongolia and China. They migrate seasonally between the steppes and the desert. Steppes are like grasslands. And then dromedary camels are native to Egypt, but they're also domesticated and can be found all over the world now.
And then because they have a male and female, are they a mating pair?
They are a mating pair. They're still a little bit young yet, but that is the hope that someday they will have a baby. Gestation is about 13 months. So if they breed this year, we would see a calf in, let's see if I do the math right, in spring of 2023. So that would be the absolute earliest, but I don't make any promises.
And what advice would you give for someone wanting to pursue a career in the field, either as a keeper or maybe as a vet tech?
Let's see, advice for someone who wants to become a keeper or go into the veterinary medicine. I would say start early. You need both education and hands-on experience. So if you think that that's something that interests you, you should look into volunteering or applying for internships as soon as you can. We have a volunteer program here at the zoo, for example, so that would be a really great way to get some experience early on. And then stay in school. A lot of zookeeping jobs and definitely veterinarians or vet schools want to see degrees in biology, zoology, psychology, wildlife management, something along those lines.
And what kind of organizations work towards increasing the populations of camels?
I know of one that works with wild Bactrian camels. I believe it's called the Wild Camel Project. They are breeding wild Bactrian camels and releasing them back into the wild. I'm pretty sure it's the only program that is doing that currently. There's so few of them that you won't find them in zoos.
And what is your favorite thing about these two?
Oh goodness. My favorite thing about the camels, honestly my favorite time of year is in the spring. They shed their winter coats every spring, and so Zoe's pawing at the ground because she's annoyed right now that Xander is hogging the food. That was a very unique behavior for them. Anyway, they shed their fur every season, and so in early summer there's a period where they are completely naked and they look ridiculous, and I love it. And then they grow back their fur coat all on their own just in time for winter when it gets cold, and they look very majestic. And then it happens all over again. When they're shedding their fur, it comes off again all on its own in these big matted clumps. It kind of felts together, and it looks like they have mange, but they're totally okay. They're totally fine. It's natural. It happens every year. There's nothing wrong with them when that happens.
Awesome. That's all the questions we had.
Right. Thank you everyone for listening, and happy hump day.